Howdy, everybody. Welcome back to the program. It's 5 p.m. in the Mountain Time Zone, which means it's Hollywood and Toto.
Certainly is.
And welcome to the Geriatric Club.
Thank you. I'm waiting for the AARP card in the mail. I got a thing in the mail that looked AARP-ish, but it was my AAA.
Okay.
That was close.
But they gave you the senior discount, though.
I don't know if they did.
So I got a big kick out of the fact that you really seem a little upset that you've turned the big 5-0.
A little? Yeah, it's weird. You know, I don't mind being the big 5-0. I worry about like being 70 or 80 or like, it's just when you crunch the numbers, it's not good.
It's not good.
More than half your life is over.
Right.
Your youth is going to be fading. I'm as vain as the next person, and I don't know.
The 5-0 was the one that bothered me the most because you do realize that on the arc of life, you're on the downside.
Yeah,
you're on the downside now.
Yeah, and I just you think ahead about things, and I've had a bad back for a year and a half. I've actually been doing abdominal work, and it's almost all gone away. Just a little life hack for those people out there. But yeah, it's amazing.
Do you have a six-pack?
Oh yeah, it's buried somewhere.
Well, I didn't want to see it.
Yeah.
Put it up on Facebook. Put it up on Facebook. Come on, Toto. Show everybody your
Not
six
yet.
pack.
Maybe in a couple months. We'll see. Yeah, it's an interesting. And I actually went to Breckenridge and celebrated with some friends. It was an excellent time.
Well, good.
I've got some good brothers-in-law and had a great time. So it was as painless as possible, but the reality is still here.
But because the reality is you walked in this evening, and I could tell just by the look on your face that you were dreading me even bringing it up, the fact that you're now over the hill.
To be fair, I dread a lot when I walk in the studio.
Well, true.
So,
that is true.
Pick and choose.
And I totally understand that. I totally understand it. Well, anyway, happy birthday.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Is it over?
You old fart. Michael Moore.
How
old's Michael Moore?
I think he's in his early 60s. I'm going to guess about 64.
Yeah, let's do a little.
I will say, people always pick on Michael Moore. He's a little heavy-set. Dude looks good for his age. Looks exactly the same. He's
64 years old.
Yeah.
April 23rd, 1954.
I look at him.
Michigan.
The same rumpled hat, the same rumpled outfit, the same everyman shtick.
Yep.
It might be a little bit artificial, though.
Oh, you think so?
I
Tell
suspect.
me why, Mr. Old 50-year-old Christian Toto.
So earlier this week, I was on the Twitter, which I'm on way too much, and I saw something
you are
from
on Twitter a lot.
That's right. I saw something with actually it was a friend of mine alerted me to this on Facebook, so I went to Twitter, which is a whole social connection there, about Jessie Maltin. Jessie Maltin is the daughter of Leonard Maltin. Leonard Maltin is a legendary film critic.
Right.
He's been around for 30 years doing what he does. Introduces movies and festivals,
I also didn't realize
films.
he was still alive when you said
He is.
Yeah.
I speak to him regularly for some of the work I do. I met him a few years ago in Denver. Nicest guy in the world. And his daughter was railing against Michael Moore. I'm like, what's going on? So it sounds like there was some dispute where Michael Moore was bad-mouthing some contract workers, and she was saying, I know these guys. I know what this backstory is. Michael Moore is wrong. Well, by the time I checked into it, Leonard Maltin had weighed in on Twitter and had like a video that he posted on Twitter. And he looked very uncomfortable. And he said, I am very uncomfortable doing this. But these are our friends. I think it's, Boston Sound and Design, I believe is the name of the company. And they do work for different festivals and different film organizations. And I guess Michael Moore's Traverse City Film Festival hired them to do some work. And they didn't get paid. And so they've been chasing Michael Moore, and now they've sued Michael Moore. Subsequently, Michael Moore, according to Leonard Maltin, went on stage at a more recent festival and kind of badmouthed them. So they have some sort of personal agenda against me, or some personal vendetta. And Leonard Maltin had enough. He said, I admire it and respect your work, Mr. Moore, but this is wrong. You're not paying them. You're denigrating them in public. You've got to do the right thing here. And I thought, wow, I mean, this is amazing because Leonard Maltin is not a bomb thrower. He's not a culture warrior. He's the most straight-laced guy in the world. So for him to be roused out of that generic, I'm just a good guy who reviews movies, and I'm not insulting that. I applaud him, was very interesting. The tweet got lots and lots of traction. I think he might have 70,000 Twitter followers, so obviously he's got a flock and a following.
Well, and 13,000, over 13,000 retweets and likes on it. So I'm watching the video. I haven't watched it since you sent it to me a few days ago, but I'm watching with the sound off. It's always fascinating to watch stuff without the sound.
Yeah, it's an extra level.
Because it's just, and here he is. You're watching, instead of listening to him, you're watching his eyes and his expression. He's just being very matter of fact, very kind of genuine in what he's saying, watching it silent. But you know the best part of the whole video, Periscope? The dog that walks behind him.
Of course.
His dog walks behind him.
That's all
best.
CGI.
That's the best.
They added that in post. So I thought, wow, this is a fascinating story. I mean, here's a guy who's never political and never outspoken, kind of in a way doing both. Although this really isn't political in nature. It's more like an injustice he sees. You got Michael Moore, who's a big star, still a big star. He's an Oscar winner. He's got a new movie out that's coming very soon, Fahrenheit 11/9. So all these things wound together. I'm thinking, this is a big news story. So I wrote about it. The story got a lot of traction.
Yeah, it's at HollywoodandToto.com.
And then I watched my fellow media reporters, and nothing. So I think by the time I wrote it, it was maybe a day old on Twitter, no stories. The best I can tell, I was the first person to write about it and put it online.
Good.
Then Twitchy followed.
Right.
The Weekly Standard followed. Then Breitbart did as well. I don't know if anyone has caught up recently. But for 2 to 3 days, there was nothing about it. Now, Michael Moore is the kind of guy, if he's got stomach indigestion, they write about it. He's a newsmaker. He's always poking and prodding the news cycle. And to his credit, I think he's actually a very shrewd marketer. So it was amazing. So this is how the media works. It wasn't just the entertainment media, which went radio silent. It was the USA Today's, the Hill, all these different organizations that usually cover what he does. Nothing.
Malton tweeted, "I'm extremely uncomfortable doing something like this.
Yeah.
I have no desire to fight or argue with anyone, but," and this is where he gets all the respect in the world from me, "but I must stand up for my dear friends at Boston Light and Sound. Hashtag Michael Moore is slandering them, and I cannot stand idly by while that happens."
Now,
well, you know what?
What?
Standing ovation for you, Mr. Moore.
Absolutely. Talk about bravery in Hollywood.
Yes,
there you go.
Standing ovation.
Here's the other story, which I hope to dig into in the weeks to come. What we saw as a result of this was a cascade of replies. And the usual, good for you, bad for you. Twitter replies can be kind of nasty or weird or inconsistent or incoherent. But I also saw people who seemed to know the film industry saying, oh, we've heard about this from the years. This isn't the first story. Michael Moore doesn't treat his employees well. I'm thinking,
it's
is this another open secret that no one's talking about? And why aren't they talking about it? He's not Harvey Weinstein, although he's a pretty powerful guy. Have they been protecting him because he's a left-of-center star, and they want to have him on their side? They don't want to diminish him, and therefore they kind of have a hands-off policy, even if he's not treating people well. Now, again, these are accusations. I've actually reached out to Michael Moore's camp for comment. There's been no comment yet. I did a story about him about a year and a half ago about his claims that he's had attempts on his life, which is very serious, obviously. I dug into it as much as I could, found no evidence of it. I reached out to him for, hey, do you have a comment? This is what I've uncovered. This is what I've not uncovered. What do you say? There was no comment from his camp again. So I don't want to just blast things out there. This is what Leonard Maltin is saying. This is what other people are alleging. It's just fascinating, I think.
Here's why I find it fascinating. And look, again, I know nothing about Michael Moore's true financial situation. It may really suck. I don't know. He's divorced now, right?
Divorced now, and that divorce proceeding revealed that he had 9 homes at the time.
Right, that he had 9 homes. They were fighting over the homes, fighting over, distribution of money and stuff. So the guy's got some assets.
Got some cash.
Whether he's got cash or not, I don't know, but he's got assets. But when you don't pay your workers, and that's consistently not done, that's a story.
It's a story.
And where are all the movie people? Why are they hiding?
Shh, they're sleeping.
You're listening to The Michael Brown Show.
Hey, welcome back to Hollywood and Toto on the Michael Brown Show. Follow Christian on his website, HollywoodandToto.com. Follow him on Twitter at Hollywood and Toto, or just follow him right here every Friday evening at 5 o'clock.
Or just stalk me at the studio.
Yeah, or just stalk him at the studio.
Please don't.
In fact, I can tell you, he usually goes, I'll tell you what door he usually exits and enters, and you can just, take a baseball bat and take his kneecaps out.
Wow.
Because he's old and decrepit now. He can't fight back because, I mean, my God, you're 50 years old. How did you even make it in tonight?
Why am I here? There's inciting violence, and then there's what you just said.
That's right. If I tweeted that out, I'd get banned from Twitter for tweeting that. But on the FCC regulated airways, I can say, "Hey, beat him up."
You know what? You wouldn't, because I'm a right of center personality, allegedly.
Oh, exactly.
So
you're right.
You're good. You're good to go.
I am good. I can just show up tonight at 6:05 and just beat the tar out of him.
That's got to break.
He's so old. It's just so sad. He can't
How old is he?
Well, you know the sad part is?
It gets sadder?
It does get sadder because I'm sitting here trying to be Mr. Tough Guy, funny guy, and I'm thinking, crap, I wish I was 50 years old.
I know you're a little bit older. That's okay.
But just,
we're in the same rickety boat.
That's right. The same.
Sinking.
It is a rickety boat. In so many ways, it's a rickety boat. What else you got for us tonight?
Well, it's been a long time. A very long time. And too long, I say. But The View is back, and we've got them. And this one is particularly important because it is in your wheelhouse of expertise.
It is.
Hurricane
Now, I
season.
gotta find the email real quickly. Dadgummit, surely.
You're going to read my emails I get on the air.
No.
Oh, okay.
Hang on.
I didn't know I was having a post-birthday roast.
I get an email from from Ed. Ed is a staunch fan of the program.
Okay.
But the fact that he's Lori Lynn's father may not have anything to do with it.
Not at all.
But at 10:30 a.m. today, I got an email that said, "You and the president were mentioned on The View. You might want to watch it." Signed, Ed, Lori Lynn's father. And not 2 seconds later, I get from you an email. Hey, can you throw this in at the last minute?
Great minds think alike. That's funny.
Any setup? Listen, I have to be honest. I was listening to this when I got interrupted, so I only got through it. It's a minute. It's 68 seconds long. I only got through the first 30 seconds of it.
Okay.
So I don't know exactly how bad it is. But
I don't know
can't
either.
wait.
I just can't wait either. And I saved it. What I often do is I don't listen, though. I get the synopsis. I'm like, okay, cut, paste, send to Mr. Brown. Because I want to have the fresh reaction, because that's the best reaction.
Okay, so are we going to go straight through this one, or are we going to?
Well, I'm going to raise my hand if I've got to make a comment. This is your clip. This is your.
I know.
Sunny Hostin, I believe.
Is it Sunny?
Yeah, I think she's the lead on this, although there's often crosstalk. Oh, it's so good to have The View back.
It is. And they mentioned me. Oh, I'm so excited. Oh,
This is like what we've been waiting for.
It is.
And we didn't have to even show up at the studio.
I know. We could just, in fact, let's just put this on the loop and let you and I go to dinner. We can get the early bird special since we're both over 50.
Or when we finally go to The View, we can say, "Hi, remember you talked about me?"
That's right. Exactly.
I'm here.
All right. 3, 2, 1.
There are some things that are indefensible, and they're so out of touch from reality, and a lot of that is.
Wait a minute. I can't. I'm sorry. 5 seconds into it. There are some things that are indefensible and so out of touch reality. That's the show's mission statement, isn't it?
That's right. Welcome to The View.
Isn't that The View on a normal day?
There are some things that are indefensible, and they're so out of touch from reality, and a lot of that is because he hasn't been on the ground there since right after it happened. A lot of these deaths took place after that storm because.
So we're talking about the storm in Puerto Rico with Trump. That's the
yes.
That's the
and the story is this: the Puerto Rican government estimated, I think, there were 6 deaths, and then they upped it to 64 deaths or something. And then, I don't know, Johns Hopkins, maybe it wasn't Johns Hopkins, but some university did a study. And they calculated that something like 60,000 people died because of Hurricane Maria.
Okay.
Now, what normally happens is there's never a way to say specifically X number of people died in a disaster, unless it is, for example, a self-contained, like, there's a house fire, and there are 5 people in the house that die. You can say 5 people died directly of that house fire. The problem with disasters is this. You have people that are in weakened physical conditions, that have weakened immune systems. They're old, they're geriatric, they're over the age of 50. I mean, any number of things. And so the stress causes them 6 months later to die of a heart attack.
So that's kind of more of a summation of the impact.
Right.
But again, we don't know.
We don't, I mean, so I could do, look, you give me enough money, tell me what the numbers are that you want to claim that Maria killed. I can come up with those numbers for you. Based
on your information, your sense, your knowledge, do you think that was a biased study, or that was just the best they could do, and it's
no,
so...
I think what they were trying to do, honestly, was come up with the biggest number they can, because they want, this study is designed to show that this was a horrific event, which it was. I mean, all disasters are horrific events. So they wanted to make it as big as possible so that they could what?
Weaponize it?
They could weaponize it against...
Get more money?
Against Donald Trump.
Okay.
No.
So you're saying it is. You do think there are ulterior motives here besides
well, I think
the facts straight?
Of course I think there are ulterior motives because there just is, look, any group of social scientists can get together, doctors and everybody can say, okay, because there's no way to, unless you do, I mean, a lot of really deep forensic work, which nobody's going to do. So a 78-year-old man dies 67 days after the hurricane makes landfall, and he dies of a heart attack or emphysema, or he falls and breaks his leg. How do you tie that back to the day that there was landfall? Did he trip that day and he had a weak bone and there was a hairline crack that nobody knew about, so when he tripped and fell the next time, I mean, it's just so much that goes into it.
Yeah.
There's really no way.
And also, if you do make a study like this and the number is big, it will not be questioned because the media wants that narrative.
They want the narrative, and that's the narrative going around now, is that Trump is talking about what a good job they did in Hurricane Maria, and everybody is ignoring the fact that, look, you can criticize FEMA in any disaster, but in Hurricane Maria, there were a lot of problems because you had a corrupt government. I told NBC News this week, they asked me, well, what about the military? Why couldn't the military do stuff? And I said, let me give you an example. So a Black Hawk helicopter takes a pallet of food and water into a remote village. They have to first clear a landing zone. But if they can't clear a landing zone, so they parachute the stuff in, who's on the ground to distribute that? Are you going to have the military distribute that? Or are you going to let the little local governing committee do it?
And general interest reporters don't have your knowledge to kind of break that down.
Right.
So they just pass on what they pass on.
And what about black markets?
Yeah.
How much of the stuff ended up on the black market? Oh, the View.
We didn't get to The View yet. Barely.
Barely.
Scratch the surface.
Welcome back to The View on the Michael Brown Show. Christian Toto stumbles in occasionally just because he has a View clip and thinks because he has a View clip that he gets a segment on the Michael Brown Show, which he does.
I know your weaknesses.
You do. This one just makes my day.
There are some things that are indefensible, and they're so out of touch from reality, and a lot of that is because he hasn't been on the ground there since right after it happened. A lot of these deaths took place after that storm because of the lack of resources. It reminds me of Hurricane Katrina, and under George W. Bush. You remember it was 4 days after that where he was complimenting the head of FEMA at the time, Michael Brown. He said, Brownie, you're doing a heck of a job. Yeah. I can't imagine a year later George Bush saying what President Trump did, because he knew politically you just don't do that.
Well, I think it's humiliating, it's embarrassing for our country, and I don't think this president cares. I don't think he cares. And, you know, when you talk about Katrina, the deaths in Puerto Rico eclipsed Katrina by 1,100. You mean to tell me this administration takes away $10 million, FEMA dollars, to make sure that they can put kids in cages? It's something like over 90% of the additional deaths that happened after the hurricane struck were preventable. Yeah. So we're talking about the fact that this government allowed its own citizens to die. I thought that's what we only saw in dictatorships.
Oh, here we go.
You know,
that was like a greatest hit, like a Whitman sampler of all the anti-Trump stuff.
It was.
All the sort of fever swamp.
It was.
Dictator.
He hasn't gone back. He doesn't care. These deaths are attributable to him. By the way, it must have been 6,000, not 60,000, whatever the number is.
Yeah.
So these deaths are directly attributable to, I mean, how we're going to rely on The View to tell us that that somebody that died 6 months after the storm, that death is directly attributable to the hurricane?
Listen, they don't do their homework on a good day.
Right.
You think they're going to dig in and really kind of ground their heels into this situation?
Right.
No, they just want to use it as a battering ram against Trump. And this whole thing, you could really dislike Trump, and there's a million reasons you could really dislike Trump. When you say that he doesn't care about people living or dying, it's beyond the pale. I despise Barack Obama. I thought he was a terrible president. I thought he was a very flawed person in many ways. I don't think he hates people. I don't think he wants anyone dead. That's just so crazy. But that's normal conversation with Trump these days.
It is normal conversation. And I guess the thing that I take away, because they mentioned, obviously mentioned yours truly, so my brain gets wrapped around that, and I'm trying to think, to me that was a gratuitous, let's throw out as a reminder George W. Bush and Michael Brown and Katrina, because the narrative is that was a screw up.
Right.
So let's throw that narrative out along with Donald Trump, and now we've got a big stew of narratives that Trump wants people to die and Trump doesn't care, and oh, by the way, we'll mention Bush and Brown, and we can't imagine that Bush would have a year later said something. I mean,
the strange new respect for President George W. Bush.
What's that about?
Well, because that's what happens when people are out of power and can no longer influence the political landscape. All of a sudden, they get the strange new respect, like Mitt Romney, like the late Senator John McCain.
Yeah, right.
So typical.
It is so typical, and I find it.
And also, there's no talk about what was going on the ground, about the Puerto Rican government, about the infrastructure. Is there ever that never even enters the equation? It's all Trump evil.
You're right, and I think so. This week was the week of 9/11, and when I did the show on Tuesday, I was in a really foul mood, and I was in a foul mood because I don't want to relive that day, and so I'm forced to relive that day every day. And look, I lost friends, but I didn't lose family members or anything. So I get that, and I don't want us to forget that day. But I was just irritated because the country's just gone to crap since 9/11 in so many different ways, culturally, politically, socially, every way. We've just gone to crap.
Our institutions are failing.
They're failing.
Dramatically.
But now we've got a few policy changes that are turning the economy around. I see glimmers of hope occasionally in some places when it comes to social media. I'm not too excited about it, but I see somewhat glimmers of hope. And then I hear this crap, and I just think, first of all, I know that I will go to my grave, and when I die, I'll be the guy that screwed up, irrespective of how much good I've ever done in my life. That one bad thing will be what they focus on. And the same thing with George W. Bush. I don't care what you think of George W. Bush, and I've got my beefs with him for obvious reasons, but he is generally a decent guy. I've talked to people who work directly for Donald Trump. They tell me, yeah, it's kind of crazy town sometimes, but all in all, he's a decent guy. Now, we know his foibles, and you and I probably have problems with some of the things he's done in the past, but he got elected.
Yeah.
He duly got elected. Get over it, everybody. I'm sorry. I should shut up, shouldn't I?
No.
I'm on a total tirade.
I like it. It's
I'm
good.
on a total tirade right now.
Is there more audio on that, or is that it?
That was it.
Okay. Yeah, it is what it is. And again, it's The View. It's The View at their best, and I put that in scare quotes.
It is. And the sad part is, so the SEALs, which were kind of quiet during that when you think about it.
I think so.
Yeah, the SEALs were quiet.
Also, I don't know if Meghan McCain was there. Is she back on the show? I know
I bet she's not back yet. In fact, I thought I read somewhere.
Is she taking a sabbatical of some kind, perhaps?
Yeah, or that she just hasn't come back yet.
Yeah.
Or that I read that she was not going to be back in time for the start of the new season, which started last week, I think. Okay. We know way too much about the View.
That's right. We're really insiders.
We know way too much.
There's only one thing left.
But
live it in person.
Right.
Yeah.
But I guess the sad part is I think about, in terms of the culture, the people that show up and listen, they're just sponges.
Yeah.
So they hear that.
And also, there's this sense in our lives where if someone is writing it for a newspaper or is on TV, it's got to be true. Like we kind of give them a credence, sort of a sense of respect that is often not earned. Oh. It's just based on its culture, its movies, its TV. Why would they say that if it's not true?
Right.
I look at my little kids, and my oldest son spits out the craziest stories. Like, oh, I saw it on YouTube. I think it's our human nature just to assume that if it's there, it's here, it's everywhere, it's true.
Right.
And more likely, it's absolutely not true. It's bonkers false. But that's how we're geared.
Yeah.
And these people do the stuff on the show, and they want to set narratives, and they have an agenda, and it doesn't do people a good service. It's the complete opposite. So.
We went to see, speaking of narrative,
Uh-oh.
we went to see Jennifer Garner in Peppermint.
Oh, I'm sorry. You liked it? I hated that movie.
Oh, did you really?
Oof. And I love her. She's great. I like vigilante movies. I thought that was dumber than dirt.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, maybe it's just because I was tired and it was hot, and I just
got to get your death wish on.
Okay, it was kind of dumb.
It was dumb.
But I found it entertaining.
Okay.
I found it entertaining.
Right.
But then, is Jennifer Garner an anti-gunner?
I don't know. I think she's a person of faith as far as politically speaking. I don't think she's very outspoken about many issues. I mean, she's not one of the people in Hollywood who talks and talks and talks.
Right, because I tried to find out, and I really couldn't find out a bunch.
You know, it's what we talked about. I think we talked about this, where the movie is a total Death Wish ripoff. It's totally guns, guns, guns. And very few people in their reviews said, oh, my goodness, this is an NRA propaganda machine.
Well, what caught my attention about it was somebody complaining about the double standard, that here's Jennifer Garner, who is an anti-gunner, now doing the show that's nothing but not just semi-automatic weapons, but automatic weapons, and just blowing the crap out of everybody.
I think they're a better example because there's so many action heroes who do speak out against guns. So, so I think there are other ways you can kind of look at that. I don't know if she's the best example.
Okay, because the friends that we were talking to about it said that they didn't think the critics liked it because she's a Christian and she makes no bones about her Christianity.
I don't know. That's a tougher one.
Okay.
Possible.
Right. Okay.
You're listening to The Michael Brown Show.
Did you what time it really is? It's the View time. The View.
The View. We have more. We don't have any more, do we?
No, we don't have any more. But
Okay.
I'm just thinking. We've got what was the hospital show that used my name a couple of times?
Grey's Anatomy, ER.
Yeah, Grey's Anatomy.
Okay.
Grey's Anatomy used it. I think we now need to, Angie. We now need to take this and we need to make a montage and maybe add to the show's intro the View mentioning my name, because we grabbed snippets of different famous people using my name and throw it into the intro.
It'd be an honor to have the
Yeah,
View.
absolutely right.
Yeah.
And my whole attitude is, people say, "Well, aren't you embarrassed by it?" No, I own it. I absolutely own it. I have nothing I'm ashamed of. I own everything. So
there you
View,
go.
you want to talk about me? Fine.
Bring it.
Mention my name all you want to.
Can't wait to see you in person.
That's right. Can't wait to come and talk to you. Party of Five?
It's back. Shocking, right? A TV show from the 90s is coming back because they reboot everything.
And
it's got
can I just say?
Yeah.
I wasn't a fan of this show to begin with.
I never watched it. Nev Campbell was the big star, I guess you could say. I have nothing against it. I just never get a chance to see it. And,
but it's just another reboot.
Well, it is and it isn't.
Oh.
Because there's a change.
Oh, God.
Now, they're not doing the gender switch from what I can tell. But there is a new focus. Now, the original show, the parents of the children died, and they were kind of left to fend for themselves and kind of grow together and lean on each other, which is a very powerful premise. This time around, it's a family of Mexican, I guess they're Mexicans, who are in the country illegally. Their parents get deported, and now they have to fend for themselves without their parents.
Oh, God. Are you kidding me?
Nope. I wonder what side it's going to take on the immigration debate.
I'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, I
I'll
can't
have
wait.
To see the, because I can't imagine that they would be.
Vegas wouldn't touch those odds.
No, not at all. Not at all. In fact, I'm not going to go near it because I'm only going to assume that it'll be very, very anti-illegal immigration.
I think it's going to be fair and like straight down the middle. I mean, there's no way they're going to sympathize with the plight of these young children who don't have their mom and dad around. There's not a chance of that. So it'll clearly be a wall story.
Is the is the set just like a wire cage?
That's right.
Do the kids grow up like on a metal slab or in the?
We saw the metal cages weeks ago, and obviously it's a harrowing image. And then, of course, we quickly found out, that was during the Obama years.
Yeah.
And then no one seemed to incorporate that into the conversation.
Let's move on.
Yeah,
We got to move on.
Amazing. And the showrunners, the people behind the show, I don't have their exact verbiage, but when their statement about sort of announcing the show, the premise, and
right.
it was very political. So, I mean, you know exactly where this is going. But you know what? If that's what they want to do, there is enough of an audience out there where I think people who hate Trump and hate the wall and hate the fact that we actually defend our borders sometimes, maybe they rush to it. But the problem with that is if it's going to be really heavy-handed and really over the top, then the story and the creativity falls by the wayside. We've seen it dozens and dozens of times where the message overlaps everything else, and that's a problem.
I didn't realize this. The original series won a Golden Globe in 96. Best Drama, helped launch the careers of Scott Wolf, Matthew Fox, Nev Campbell, Lacey Chabert,
I believe.
I think, Jennifer Love Hewitt.
Yeah. Well, that's right, Jennifer Love Hewitt's in that.
I didn't realize it was that good.
It was a modest hit. Did well and did put all those people you just mentioned into the mainstream. I don't think they've had the most amazing careers. Nev Campbell had the biggest hit with the Scream series. And she was just in the movie Skyscraper. So they've worked fairly steadily. Matthew Fox was on Lost.
You know what this reminds me of is how much or how little I think because of well, actually I take that back. But I was early in my law career. Just how busy I was, and I didn't watch that much television.
Oh, you got some catching up to do.
I do. When you think about, so I graduated from law school in '82, and then I'm busy building a practice and everything, and I didn't watch a lot of television.
80s TV, you didn't miss much.
Yeah.
You got the A-Team. Hill Street Blues, very good show. And there was some other moonlighting.
We never watched Hill Street Blues.
Yeah.
I remember it being on and seeing a couple of the episodes, but it wasn't one of those things that, hey, we sat down to watch,
right.
every, like Seinfeld was every Thursday night.
Yep, must-see TV night.
Yeah, that was must-see. Yeah.
Well, you missed the Cosby Show. And you're not going to see it again, by the way, because that's been thrown into the black zone.
Right.
No racial intended. That it's gone.
Right. And well, clearly you are racist because you said it was.
I meant black hole, by the way.
Yeah, well, that's even worse. So you just keep talking. You're digging yourself into a gigantic black hole here.
That's okay. I'm going to be taken out by a listener after the show. So.
Well, that's right. That's right. So you're not going to make it back to your car anyway. So this one doesn't make any difference. What was the guy from the Cosby Show? That story.
Was it Jeffrey Lewis?
I don't remember what his name was.
That's his name.
He was the son-in-law, right?
Yeah, he had a minor but recurring role.
Right.
And they said that one of the reasons why he was at Trader Joe's is that the money train from the reruns dried up because of everyone's canceling the Cosby Show reruns based on Bill Cosby's insanely awful, terrible behavior. So it was an interesting repercussion.
So that is a fascinating repercussion. I didn't understand that was why, but I'm still disgusted by the fact that the initial reaction was, oh, look how far he's fallen. Wait a minute. He's fully employed at Trader Joe's.
I found the reaction to that fascinating because I think in our culture that in other times, I think we would have went with it. Yeah, look, he's got a job at Trader Joe's. I think as bad as you were talking about the culture, how things have gotten worse, and I agree with Everett. I feel very negative about it. The fact that we rallied around him was a good thing, and I'm not sure why it happened.
But that wasn't initially. I think that was the second reaction. The first reaction was, oh, look how far he's fallen.
No.
And then I think we came back and said, no, wait a minute. We should glorify the fact he's working.
That happened much quicker than I think you realize. I think
really?
It was almost instant. They made fun of Fox News for even talking about it and framing it like that in the first place. So
good.
There's hope left.
Okay, well, so don't beat Christian up after the show.